Take two. Welcome back, everyone, to Chat in the Commons, where we tear it all down, one sensible conversation at a time. I'm Elle Kamihira. I'm a documentary producer and podcast host.
And I'm Natalie Blundell. I'm in the corporate world and also the founder of an online women's support network.
Yeah, so today we're going to switch it up a little bit and talk about women and work.
Women and work. Actually, before we get started on the episode, I think we should rename our show from Chat in the Commons. I know this is a bit of a surprise attack.
Yeah, I'm a little shocked.
You know, I feel it should be, instead of Unsolved Mysteries, it should be Mysteries Solved. Because I feel like every episode we're demystifying what we've been conditioned to believe.
That's true. We're myth-busting.
Mythbusters. Yeah, we could wear a cape and have like a whole photo shoot.
I think Mythbusters, the title is taken. Not to disappoint, but...
And this episode on work and women in work will be jam-packed with that as well.
So many misconceptions, I feel, or so many conditionings and patriarchal reversals and language tricks. There's a lot to unpack.
We're just so used to terminology or expectations or societal conditioning. We hope to open your ears and eyes today with some of the things revolved around work and even the term work.
Yeah.
You know, people say, oh, do you work or do you not work? So what does that even mean, working?
Yeah, it is such a new concept to divide paid work from the rest of life, the rest of the tasks of life.
Yeah.
It's such an artificial division now where you have like professional positions and a professional life and professional work that goes into one category that's paid and awarded and valued in every which way. And then you have all the tasks that's not paid, that's just part of life, whether it's child rearing or keeping a house or raising a family, or there's just so many categories of quote unquote work that isn't counted simply.
I think most people don't think of what else they do as their job, but it really is.
Yeah.
And obviously we're looking at this through the eyes of being a woman.
Yeah.
And all the endless tasks women face every day. And I really feel that affects every woman on the planet, whether you're living in a first world country or a third world country. This affects every woman.
And I just think every woman I've met, like maybe not really, really young women, but like every woman I've met my whole life are constantly working.
Yeah.
Starting with my mom and grandmother. I don't think I've ever saw neither of them sit or stand still at any point. You know, we call it multitasking these days, and it's definitely something that women do.
Yes, do very well. Very, very well.
I mean, you do it, I do it, and it's really what it is it's balancing this like long list of tasks, work, juggling, you know, mixing domestic, communal, professional tasks all throughout the day. And some of it is structured and scheduled, but a good portion of it is just like unstructured time. Most women I know keep a running to-do list in their heads to work off of, those like invisible task lists, even if they're quote unquote unstructured time, which is why women make it seem so effortless, because they just kind of like have this internal checklist.
Yeah, and it's not even that each of those are separate. Everything's going on at once. So you could be on that work call, texting one of your kids about something, emailing, again, while you're doing your paid job work, your professional job. These are all going on simultaneously. And if you're in the house too, you've got the laundry going. We've got a lot of plates spinning in the air all at once. And we do handle it well, but we also get burnt out with that level of productivity.
There's an expectation that you're supposed to handle all of that with no downtime and no time off. Certainly if you have a family or have children, you have to have an income, and you also have to handle everything else.
Yeah, and this work, as we say, it's never ending. It is endless work, because even if you get through that day's tasks, your mind, as you're going to bed, you're already starting to plan tomorrow's tasks and how you're going to strategize on handling those.
And, professional work or a title or work in general has a certain value, is valued. When you're an earner, you earn money for your household. And the rest of the work that you do, the nurturing, the child rearing, the organization of your family's needs and everything else is devalued, generally speaking.
Yeah, it's just in service. You're serving your family, like volunteerism. It's in service of the family. And you've nothing to show for it half the time.
I've heard it called the disappearing work, because if you think about it, whether you're doing dishes or laundry or shopping and cooking, you don't have anything to show for it other than a happy, contented family, well-brought-up kids, tended to family members. But it's not like you can point to it and say, I designed that building, or I brought my company's bottom line up, or, this and that and the other. It's like it just is, and it's not visible, and it disappears.
It is kind of ironic that what men do is called labor. Women don't get that term unless they're actually giving birth to a child.
Even though, of course, 75% of U.S. mothers, 75% of mothers work, bring in money in this country. But even so, men are termed, and I think of themselves and think of the expectations on themselves as breadwinners.
Yes. That term, though, not even breadwinner, the term working mother. Just think about that. I'm a working mother. Other than being a mother and doing everything else you do, you go to a paid job. But that's like all the women that don't go to a paid job, they're not working mothers. They're absolutely working mothers. It's an insult to say anything else.
Absolutely.
Back to the breadwinner.
Well, we don't say working father. We don't say working father, because the truth is 75% of mothers work, but a very small percentage of men actually take a good share of the domestic work. They just don't. Men, by and large, have not alleviated this move that women have made out into the workforce. Men have not picked up their share of the domestic work at all. And I also think about this role of like men get to be called providers and breadwinners, and women don't get to be called anything. we just do it.
Exactly. And it's not good that men are given this label, the breadwinner.
No.
I think there are disadvantages and effects of men having that stress and pressure that they are the ones bringing home most of the money.
Absolutely. And also the whole idea of checking out of your family life for 40 hours a week and being expected to serve the company you work for, or the job that you have, or the profession you have. You're expected to devote yourself completely to that. But what does it do to men to not have those relationships with their children, or not spend that time with their children or their partners or in the home? To my mind, it just creates such a separation between family members and deprives men of having any kind of role in the nurturing of their children, or running the household, or being part of their clan.
Yeah, I think 5:30, 6 o'clock comes around and the key goes in the door. Yeah. And mum shouts out, "Daddy's home!" And the children go running, and there's the big welcome home from the hard day at work. But honestly, I've been in corporate America for 30 years now. They're not doing a heck of a lot in the office, let me tell you. I think for most men, they're quite happy to check out for 8 to 10 hours a day and just get a break. And I've actually heard that said in the office, like, things at home, they're tough. I'm glad to be here. I come here to escape. I've heard those words.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very convenient setup, the way we have it.
But then those 40 hours is supposed to be like such a heroic sacrifice, heroic accomplishment for which they're near worshipped for being the hardworking provider, the hardworking breadwinner. And meanwhile, it's kind of, I don't want to say easy street, but they go someplace where they have a structure that tells them what to do. And not that it's not challenging. And I know, this is a very varied picture, but I think they get valorized for bringing home the bacon, so to speak, in ways that women just don't experience.
And don't get me started either on like white collar professions where they've got to travel for work. Oh, it's so hard on these men to go travel for work and go to that conference for 4 days. Oh, it's exhausting. No, you get like a real break. You are allowed to completely check out, not even be on your phone or answer to anything going on at home. And you've just got this big blanket excuse. You've got meals paid for, you're having fun, you're not really working. Nothing, honestly, illustrates this better than what happened last week. I don't know if you caught that with the CEO of Astronomer that was at a concert with his HR director. His name's Andy Byron. And
they got caught on Kiss Cam. And Chris Martin of Coldplay called them out, saying they must be having an affair or
be really shy. This guy lives in Ohio and this concert was in Boston. So that he was telling his wife that he's so busy at work, taking out the investors for dinner or whatever. I'm sure she wanted to go to a Coldplay concert instead of his employee.
Yeah, so CEOs have a really, really high status. And here he is working so hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Women know this. This was just nothing new to us, and why the guys that go out to work and do the traveling is kind of BS.
To me, it seems like a system created for men to kind of have like a separate life that takes them out of the drudgery of the domestic sphere.
Yeah, it's hard raising children, especially when they're young. I mean, it's difficult at all ages, but, you have a couple of kids under 5. That's really, really hard work. And it's not for the faint of heart. It's tough.
Yeah, and it's crucial besides.
Yeah.
The nurturing and bringing up well-rounded, good-hearted human beings with all of their parts and pieces intact is a big, big, big job. I wanted to stop a little bit and talk a little bit about this whole man as breadwinner myth, if we're calling it that.
Because we're mythbusters. We're mythbusters.
We are the mythbusters. It's been written about now, but I was reading this article in Time magazine about the breadwinner myth by Amanda Ruggieri. And the male breadwinner, female homemaker division of labor is unusual. She quotes behavioral scientist Rebecca Sear saying that childcare is not the exclusive preserve of women in most societies, and even more so, productive labor is not the exclusive preserve of men. The article goes back to describe how most of humanity evolved, which was in hunter-gatherer groups. And in that situation, children were reared and brought up, and all the labor, whether it was growing food or gathering food or hunting, was shared by groups of adults. That's how most of humanity evolved. for hundreds of thousands of years before modern time that there was no mom, dad, and children. It was a group of adults with groups of children. Pre-marriage, pre-coupleship. The man hunter, woman gatherer is an even bigger myth.
What do you mean?
They're coming to the conclusion now that both sexes have always hunted and have always gathered.
Oh,
there's no
yeah.
sex segregation between hunting and gathering.
It's like somewhere along the line, history books were changed and the artwork was created to feed us all that it was the men.
Yeah.
It was their job.
And also casting themselves in that provider role, and that provider breadwinner role have like existed for all of humanity, which is just not true. Women have always worked. Always.
Yeah.
Even through the Middle Ages and pre-industrial times, peasant women worked alongside men in fields. Now, a lot of those fields, and this is true still today, that men owned the land because ownership of land was restricted for women in all sorts of ways. So women worked, but they did not own. And women still work in those fields and gardens and rice paddies all over the world, but very, very few own the land. I think women own 2% of all the Earth's land, agri-land.
Wow.
And work most of it.
And work most of it, yeah. I think it's like 400 million women are in agricultural labor.
It's the most common profession for women working the land.
Right, and in 90 countries in the world, and we only have 195 countries, in 90 of the countries, women don't have the inheritance rights or equal rights to own land. Today, this isn't even historical. This is still today, they can't even get that land in their name.
It's very hard for women to get ownership. There's a lot of male violence against women who try. There's a lot of stigmatization against women who try to gain claim to land. And also, we don't have to go deep into this, but witchcraft or villainizing women as a way to maneuver them out of land ownership or off lands is an age-old method. Still goes on today in India and Africa and a lot of other places.
So when you really think about it, the fruits of women's labor is always benefiting someone else.
Yes.
We can't be the landowners as well as other things. We're just working for someone else.
Yes. With agriculture and certainly with the industrialization. And we were, through coverture, man's property for, up until very, very recently, where we literally belonged to them and we were a servant/breeder class.
Men totally gaslight in today's world the encouraging women to stay home and raise the children. They'll frame it, as we said in our marriage episode, that you've worked so hard, you can stay home with the kids and I'll go to work, you raise them. And it's framed in a way that we believe that it's good for us, it's good for the family, to take us out of the workforce, to then be completely beholden to him.
Yeah, there's so much to say about the stay-at-home mom. And now, of course, it's been rebranded and kind of being popularized through the trad wife role. It has passed out of everyone's memory what that actually meant for women and exactly how trapped and how rightless and resourceless women actually were in that situation.
Yeah.
No one knows or remember that anymore. Often the stay-at-home mom offer or proposition is thought of in terms of affording the woman kind of a luxury that the man earns enough to afford the woman to stay home and raise the kids. And we don't talk enough about what you stand to lose as a stay-at-home mom, which also the whole idea of a stay-at-home mom, the term makes it sound like you're just staying at home, kind of getting princess treatments, sitting on the couch, or just like hanging out with your children. Stay-at-home mom, like kind of you lose the work part of being a stay-at-home mother. But what's also lost is what you lose by not working. And working in the world and making money and earning and working for a company and being outside of the domestic sphere gives you power in the world outside domestic sphere. When you're a stay-at-home mom, you lose the opportunity to develop any power in the world. Your power is limited to the domestic sphere, and often it's power that's granted or not granted by the male breadwinner. And if we start to look at the motivation for a man to want his wife to be a stay-at-home mom, I think you really have to examine what benefits him in keeping his, woman partner from attaining any kind of real world power outside the domestic sphere. And we just don't talk enough about it. What women trade when they choose to not work.
We've got a great clip on from Tanya Teetads about her wake-up call after being a stay-at-home mom and trusting her husband.
I just want to say something else before we play it, is that a lot of women, just like you were saying before, they so yearn to raise their own children and to be there to fulfill that role and to do the best job they can to make sure that their young come up in the best way possible, that they want to believe in the stay-at-home mom proposition. They want to think that it's a fair and equitable deal between you and your partner. They want to believe that their trust is well placed in this person who's offering it to you. But that is often not the case.
No, not at all.
When I had my first child and decided to stay home and talk to my husband about it, it was such a gesture and feeling of trust I had to have for him. I had to trust him that he was never going to use it against me, that he wasn't going to use the fact that he paid for things for me to control me or punish me or throw it in my face. Now that he's using it as a weapon against me in this divorce to try to punish me because I don't want to be married to him anymore. It's just the initial feeling and idea that I had never to trust a man was right. And now I'm paying the price for it.
I think she speaks for a lot of women.
I mean, parenting is really an expected career path for women. It's just unpaid.
Yeah.
And what goes with that, if you're not working another job, is you are completely reliant and you do trust your spouse, your partner.
And you sacrifice a lot. So you spend maybe your 20s and 30s being a stay-at-home mom, and you don't develop your skills, you don't have a resume, you don't have any of the things that you'd need as a professional. And so to kind of have a wake-up call like she is now having, and so many others, to try to make a go of it on your own, trying to make a living and support your children, is punishing.
Yeah. So let's talk about women in the workforce, the paid workforce, the professional workforce.
Where you are.
Where I am. I'm in the paid workforce. I never left the workforce.
I know.
Women in the workforce, we think we've gotten so far, but there's this occupational segregation between the male jobs and the female jobs. Obviously, there's no equality as far as just the gender pay gap. But how did we get there? we've got the whole feminization and masculization of occupations.
Yeah.
So traditionally, the male-dominated professions, like in white collar, it would be finance, doctors, CPAs, STEM, the science, tech, engineering and math. And then you've got like blue collar construction and farmers and truckers and police and plumbers.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that is those women-dominated professions, which tend to be called the pink collar. And those all work around service and care, nursing, education, retail, hairdressing, childcare, social workers. Most of those are women. The pink collar professions tend to be lower wage, and a lot of them are based on hourly wages. So there's very limited benefits for women because they're being paid hourly. And pink collar are lower, really, than both white or blue collar professions. And so we've got this bias and discrimination that happens when women go into like a white collar or blue collar career. It's then suddenly a threat to the profession's masculinity.
Cynthia Enloe, this political scientist I interviewed some time ago, she looks into this a great deal, the masculinization and the feminization of professions.
How do you take something that used to be done mainly by women and transform it, also give it higher pay, transform it so that it becomes masculized? And one of my favorite examples of the masculinization of something at first was done by women was programming for computers. Because the first programmers of the first computers in the 1930s and 40s were women, because the men who invented that, well, it wasn't all men, the men who controlled the invention, that's different, of the computer, they thought programming was like being a secretary. That was the analogy they made. And that analogy was a feminized analogy. The person who'll be good at it, and we won't have to pay her much, because we don't pay secretaries much, will be the women who do secretarial work. So the first programmers were women. And then in the 60s, 70s, and by the 90s, programming looked as though, oh, well, actually, you could have a lot of influence. You could make a lot of money off of programming. It's too important for those secretarial, clerical women. It's much too important to leave it to the girls. And so bit by bit, programmers became masculinized. That is, to masculinize something is not just to fill the job or the role with men. It's to imagine that only people that have masculine attributes, only they would really be the best programmers. So now you have women trying to break into programming when in fact they were the original programmers. In banking, in the history of banking, the first bank tellers were men because you handled money and you dealt with the public. And it was an inside job, meaning you had an office job, which all of a sudden gave you more class status. So obviously it's something only men could do. But then the bankers who were trying to maximize their profits, they thought, well, you know, if we could turn bank telling into something that looks not very important, that looks more like secretarial work, we could pay them less. And that led to the feminization of bank telling.
It's really interesting, like thinking of that reversal.
You know, I can't help but to think that also what you said before about the typical female professions are all crucial care work, and that's devalued, whereas other professions are overvalued in a sense, male professions.
Yeah. And just like in the clip, Cynthia says, when women assume a traditionally male-dominated role, there's a wage penalty when that occupation gets feminized. That profession gets paid less because suddenly it's feminized.
It's almost as if it's devalued because women are devalued.
Like a currency. The way currencies get devalued. And it's such a double standard because when men enter the pink collar professions, we just add the word male and they get paid the same or more. So if they become a nurse or a flight attendant or a hairdresser, it's like, oh, I had a male nurse. I had a male flight attendant. We actually put the word male in front of it because it's so unusual that they're coming into a pink collar profession. But that profession doesn't get devalued.
Not at all. I was surprised to hear. I mean, I know the pay gap is an issue still, but I read in the McKinsey & Company Women in the Workplace Research report.
That's a great study. Great study.
The report says that at the current rate of pay gap, it'll take 50 years to reach gender parity. That's shocking to me.
It is, and I don't know if we'll ever get there. I don't think it will be allowed.
You mean that the value of men's work will always be greater no matter what we do?
Yeah. The pay gap has barely closed in the last 20 years. So it's like we were gaining traction and that gap was changing. Mm-hmm. And then in the last 20 years, it hasn't moved. Also, the earnings growth. We can't talk about gender pay gap without really thinking about the earnings growth as far as your potential. So men increase basically until they're 55 years old, and then they start a slow decline. Women start decreasing at age 48 and do a sharp decline. What's really interesting about the statistics, we're the same up until about age 36. And then women go slow to flat, but men continue pretty steep. So that's the age it stops. And I don't think it has anything to do with having children.
No?
Well, maybe it does. It's like we don't really recover.
Yeah, but there are probably other issues as well. Some well-documented issues like discrimination, microaggression, sexual harassment, and insufficient support, devaluation.
Oh, the big one is just lack of opportunities. You can't advance as a woman. You have to work double as hard, and you're often passed up for your male counterpart. That goes on everywhere today.
And so by 36, that makes sense to like right around that time, like mid-30s, women start to be disillusioned, I bet.
Yeah, definitely. I have to bring up the Wilmar 8. If the listeners haven't heard about them, it was a really great documentary in the 80s. It's about these 8 really unassuming, hardworking women in the Midwest working at a local bank, small town, and they went on strike because of the sexism. And they were on strike for 2 years.
Oh my God.
In the Midwest, for anyone that doesn't know, it's freezing. They started the strike in December, and like the wind chills are minus 70 Fahrenheit.
Strike as in, you mean being outside picketing strike?
They were outside picketing.
Oh, wow.
Because of what they were subject to.
So not about pay gap, not about pay or
it's
anything.
It's about pay and opportunity. Okay. Mostly the opportunities that they, well, actually here, I'm going to play a clip.
On December 16th, 1977, in Wilmer, Minnesota, 8 women, employees of the Citizens National Bank, walked out of their jobs and went on strike.
It was the last straw when they hired another man and wanted us to train him for a management position. We had done this many times in the past, and the men would move right up the ladder to management, and the women were still down at the bottom training everybody that came in.
If we're qualified to train him in, then why aren't we qualified for the job?
Mr. Persh told us that we weren't the chief breadwinner in the family, so why should we get what the guys get?
Like he had been quoted, that the men would have to take their dates and pay for their meals, and so they needed to have more money. They would support the household, and so they needed more money.
We felt that we were not being heard.
And we complained.
And what happened?
We're told we're not all equal, you know.
We're not all equal, you know.
We're not all equal, you know.
So there you have it. It's a great film to watch just to see how resilient they were to not give in, just make a stand. And they were shamed in their town and community. Everyone could not believe they were going against the bank manager because they weren't allowed to get this promotion.
That's inspiring.
It is. Yeah. And they're cute. I think there's 6 of them still alive today. And women do leave. They leave their jobs from really the work-life balance, that they do get burnt out. They're really overworked and under-recognized.
For a lot of women, it turns into an existential issue at some point where they may have gone into a profession very ambitiously, but they're ground down from all of these things that we've talked about, that at some point you have to start thinking about, like, what is the return on my investment? What am I accomplishing what am I not? My dreams aren't coming true. Like, what do I spend my actual one go around on this planet doing?
Right. You really do evaluate, what am I doing here? But I think that is because still in today's world, 2025, there's still a lot of hostile work environments.
Yes.
There still is the sex discrimination and the gender bias, really. I think it's like 37% of women leaders said that they come up with an idea, they raise a point, and then it's kind of ignored or dismissed. Their male counterpart then says it, so heap eating, and then suddenly everyone's cheering. 37% is a lot, actually, if you think about that.
Yeah.
That we're dealing with that. As you said, we're dealing with the microaggressions. They're not full-out sexual harassment. Of course, that can still happen. I think it's like 4 in 10 women today still are sexually harassed in the workplace.
Yeah.
But these microaggressions where a woman's judgment is questioned, or her ideas are dismissed, or she's mistaken for a junior staff member.
Not taken seriously. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I spent many years in the film industry, both on the documentary side, commercial and independent film. And I had, as a young woman, I had ambition to become a director. When I was coming up, there was no path to that for women. And even now, today, only 4% of films produced in the U.S. are directed by women.
Wow.
So it's
Still tiny.
Yeah, men have an iron grip on some of these professions that I wouldn't say you're harassed out of it, but it's a combination of tactics that just keep you from pursuing those professions. Whether it's, there are some very classical positions like director or cinematographer that men have a lock on. And I had the opportunity as a younger producer to go and work for a small woman-owned company.
How was that?
And it was great. Like, it was great leaving the male-dominated world and enter a company that was run by women. And I stayed in that company. It may not have been like the best move for my career, but I stayed in that company so that I would be able to continue working with women.
I love that. And that's making me think already just how many times I've thought about leaving the finance industry, which is very male-dominated also, and creating or joining an all-women's financial company instead, for the same reasons as you're saying.
I got appreciated for my work. I got
that's
properly paid. I got properly respected. I was able to advance. And I can guarantee you, I would not have the career trajectory I had I not worked for them. I know that.
Oh, I believe that. I have to say that is really another great thing about the internet and social media is that women are talking with other women about this stuff.
Absolutely.
We're not just thinking it's us, it's just our industry. You start getting on that algorithm to see the videos and you realize this is happening all over. Going back to the McKinsey Women in the Workplace study, in their 2022 report, they talked about the great breakup. And it really was about women leaders switching their jobs or leaving the workforce at a really high rate. And they were becoming entrepreneurs or just as you're saying, switching into a company that had better values and aligned with people that would realize and appreciate their value. So this is, I think, continuing as women wake up.
Women are finding new paths. And I mean, you know, I'm casting back to like the dawn of capitalism. Women have always been in economic trades. In Europe, in the early capitalism, women kept trades like weaving or brewing beer. And men saw the opportunity that capitalism held for them as a tool of power and did a lot of different maneuvers and strategies to bar women, stop women, create rules and regulations, guilds and clubs that women couldn't belong to in order to sideline and squeeze women out of the opportunities of an early industrial age, to relegate women to kind of like the cheapest possible labor, instead of women having an opportunity to become owners in that big enterprise called capitalism.
Yeah. Is it too early in this episode to say that women should rule the world? Is now a good time?
Never too soon. Never too soon to say that.
I mean, even if we are not in the paid workforce, women are... We are moving the GDP. We are the consumers. We are the decision makers for all of the spending. Like, we are participating in all of our economies.
And in fact, UN Women did a piece about redistribute unpaid work to that point, that women's unpaid care and domestic work and all of that we do and all of our participation in everything is valued to be like 10 to 39% of the GDP of the world, and can contribute more to the economy than manufacturing, commerce, or transportation sectors, like the big industrial sectors. The work that we actually do outweighs some of those big sectors.
Yeah. We have some data which showed that something like 75% of all unpaid care work is carried out by women and girls. So this is a very unequal distribution between men and women. In fact, it does penalize women because taking on the bulk of this work often carries a penalty in terms of not being able to have a full-time job with a decent wage, not being able to accumulate a pension, not getting all of the benefits that come from formal sector employment. So the penalties are many, even though the benefits to society are huge. Redistributing care is really, really critical. So that really involves a rethinking and redoing of our kind of social relationships. States can go a long way in terms of making sure that there are good quality public services, childcare services, but also you try and change your expectations and social norms so that women and men can share those responsibilities more equally. So with more policies, you also increase the social expectation that more can be done to redistribute the work and not to just say this is a private matter and it's for families to deal with, which very often falls on women and girls.
That's powerful when you think about that.
And like you said, we contribute to all parts of the economy.
All women work, period.
All women work their whole lives.
Their whole lives. All women are house workers, whether or not they also go out and get paid work. All of them.
Yeah. Women have to work. And women have to work in order to contribute to the household. But they also, if they want to have children, they don't have any support. They don't have maternity leave. They don't have paid childcare. And so none of the infrastructure actually exists. And so they're trapped in this double bind of needing to work and they're being asked to have the next generation, birth the next generation with no help whatsoever.
That's so true. And it's so shocking when you look at maternity leave policy around the world. Total, we have 195 countries, and over 100 countries offer fully paid maternity. Now, the weeks may vary, but that's a lot, over half. And so like full pay in Bulgaria, you get your full pay for 58 weeks after you have a baby. Yeah. It's over a year. Norway came in second with like 49 weeks. Again, close to a year to stay home with your baby and raise that child. Yeah. The UK's 39 weeks. Even North Korea gives you 34 weeks paid maternity leave. There are only 5 countries with no federal level paid maternity leave. Number 1, the USA. And do you know the other 4? New Guinea, Palau, Micronesia, and the Marshall Islands.
Oh, that's wild.
Can you believe it? In the USA, there's no federal level. Now, there are some states, there are 14 states that have partial paid leave here in the US, but they have caps like per week. Only one state offers full pay for 12 weeks, up to $1,100 a week. Only one state. Take a wild guess.
California?
No, it's Maine.
Maine. Not surprising.
Let's all move to Maine. Any woman thinking about having a child. Now, in the US, you can take 12 weeks off when you have a baby, but it's unpaid.
and it's all down to like simply not considering pregnancy, birth, early years, tender years. It's simply not considered labor at all.
Right.
Even though it is the most laborsome thing anyone can ever do, and also happens to be crucial for the future of humanity. And yet,
it's unrecognized, it's not respected. If you respected women and what we're doing and providing for society, then you would have this. But for the US, to provide fewer maternity leave protections than any other industrialized nation, I think that's going to shock a few people listening today.
Yeah. And mothers need the most support. There's no other time of life than when you're pregnant and giving birth and raising really young babies. There's no time in your life when you need any more support than that. You need lots of people around you helping you. And most mothers don't have that at all. Genevieve Vaughn, who I also interviewed on my other podcast, she's a philosopher, semiotician, who talks about the gift economy a lot. She's brilliant with that. And she talks about that act of, mothering that we do, that is a gift to humanity, obviously. But it's also a gift to capitalism and corporations and the greater patriarchy, because we just gift it. We just gift this labor under the presumption that it's in our nature. We just do that because we're women, so we give is what we do.
All the time. And
all the time.
I think society knows that. Governments know that. They know we will step up regardless of what's going on. So no support for maternity leave. And then you've got 3 months if you want to take off here in the US. And then you have to go back to work, in quotation marks.
Yeah.
Not that we've not been working for the 12 weeks prior to that, harder than we've ever worked. But then we go back to work after having children. And then we're expected to hold 3 jobs. We're doing the 9-to-5 job. We're doing the mothering. And we're also, of course, doing the household managing.
I don't know how. I was overwhelmed with one. I don't know how people have more than one child. It shocked it straight out of my system to have the one child. And I don't know how women leave their 1-month-old infant and, you know, pump their milk in the office bathroom and give it over to some other person to take care of their infants.
It's heart-wrenching. And to also know you're not being valued at work, you're not being paid the same as your male counterparts. You completely understand. Yeah, in addition to all that, you completely understand why women exit the paid workforce, or at least during those child-rearing years. Actually, I want to play a clip here real quick about, again, quotation marks, working moms. They're really working 2.5 full-time jobs. It's really a 14-hour day when you go back to work, when you're raising children.
At least.
A study conducted by Welch's found working moms clock an average of 98 hours each week. That's the same as working 2.5 full-time jobs. The study of 2,000 American mothers with kids between 5 and 12 years old found that the average mom clocks in at 6:23 a.m. and clocks out at 8:31 p.m. for an average workday of 14 hours. 4 in 10 moms surveyed said the week felt like a never-ending series of tasks to complete.
I think we can all relate to that. Women get burnt out. They really do.
Yeah, I don't blame women. What are they called? Dinks?
Yeah, dinks is double income, no kids. And that's on the rise.
Not surprising.
Yeah.
I mean, with coming out of college with lifetime debt, if you did go to college, not being able to make a living that can afford you to buy you a house, or let alone, and having a child is expensive.
Expensive, and you'll be in debt when you take out their college loans too.
That's right. That's right.
Right. Actually, one interesting, going back to work, regardless of the seniority you have in the office, the women still continue really to do more at home. So a female exec do like 39% of that unpaid labor at home versus male execs, they do 8%.
8%?
Yeah.
I doubt that.
So, as men advance in the workplace, they do less household labor. But women, we don't have that luxury.
Of course. I just know enough men to know that as their status rise, as the paycheck gets bigger, the more status he has, the less he feels obligated to do the menial task. I have been subject to that sort of change in a man. I've seen it. And I think, as his status and ego and self-esteem grows, doing the dishes or putting the kid to bed or doing those things will simply just feel like beneath him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's watching. Women are watching, and
of course.
We talked about the great breakup earlier about the workplace, women in the workplace. But there's also the great breakup and the great divorce in the house. And no one summed that up better than Paris Paloma in her song Labor 2 years ago.
Let's ring us out with that one.
Yes, but I want to play an interview, just a quick interview of her inspiration about writing the song. She was 23 when she wrote the song, but that really has become the anthem for women. Listen to why she wrote the song here.
We're living in a time with a lot of disappointing waves of patriarchy.
Yeah.
But a lot of, confident female uprising against it. So it's resulting in Labour being like witness to these amazing moments of female solidarity in the face of like this perpetual misogyny and patriarchy.
Yeah.
Which has been really emotional for me to watch happen and be part of. I feel so heard, and I imagine that that's the feeling that a lot of like women who are sharing in this feel as well. Currently, the patriarchy doesn't exist separate to like womanhood, and that is a great tragedy. I was thinking about it a lot when people have referred to Labour as a song about womanhood, but I disagree because I think it's a song about patriarchy and exploitation, because that's not womanhood. Womanhood like should exist outside of that. a video of my show in London, in Islington, and this really wonderful moment where the whole crowd is singing along to Labour, and it's, you know, like women finding community in each other. The comment was, women are basically a cult now.
Such a simple thing, but women are watching and saying collectively, no, I don't need any of this headache. I'll have my kids, or I'll have my life. I'm not working for you and trying to work in every other way.
Yeah, and especially when now women are starting to pay attention to not just the physical labor or the mothering labor that they're doing, but everything that they're providing, sort of broadening the whole concept of labor, emotional labor, cognitive labor, the logistics, the planning, the holidaying, the vacation planning, the sports, being a school parent. Like, the concept of labor is now holding more things that women are paying attention to and kind of tallying, in a sense.
And don't forget ever the tracking of birthday cards, getting those sent out.
Just one of the things.
Doesn't cross men's minds.
No.
But women are planning months ahead of time. The gift, the present, got to get that out, sign it, mail it. And that leads us into our From the Comments section. We received a lovely email praising our podcast from a listener in Europe. And that had Elle and I thinking that in Europe, in August, you'll find many businesses closed. They really honor that we need time off and we need time to recharge.
Yeah, so we're embracing our inner Europeans and our actual Europeans, and taking August off.
Yes, indeed. And it's really important too. It gives us time to create space and to think of new ideas and to have that creativity flow. That when you're not against the grind. We go 7 days a week sometimes. So we will see you in September and look forward to that.
Have a great summer.
Yeah. Have a great summer. Hope you get some time off too.
All right, Paris Paloma.
Take us out.
Take us out.
All right, catch you next time.
Okay, see you next time.
All day, every day, therapist, mother, maid, nymph, then a virgin, nurse, then a servant, just an appendage, live to attend him so that he never lifts a finger. 24/7 baby machine, so he can live out his picket fence dreams.
Thank you for listening to Chat in the Comments. We would love to hear from you about anything we talked about on this episode. You can reach us via our social media or on our website, chatinthecommons.com. You can also find links to all the resources mentioned in this episode in the show notes.
If you like what we're doing here, please share with all of your friends. And the best way to support our work is to follow us on your podcast app.
Chat in the Commons is produced by me, Natalie Blundell, and Elle Kamahira. Audio engineering by Jason Sheasley at Abridged Audio. Artwork by Rada Tomingus. Music by Midnight Door. Theme song by Mushumi.
Too much labor.